We will call to order the regular board meeting of the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago. Good morning. My name is Marisel Hernandez. I'm the chair. Seated to my right is Commissioner William Kresse, and to my left is Commissioner Jonathan Swain. Next on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes? If not, let's proceed with the approval of the special board meeting minutes of August 8th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We also have the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 13th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Now we have the Executive Director's report. Mr. Gough.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. It's been a busy month in October. We were getting ready for two budget hearings that we have with the city and the county. Will be at the end of the month or the beginning of November. We also have other items that were put together. We have meetings with other city departments. We have a meeting on the 18th at 1 p.m. out at 26 of Cal to talk about pretrial detainees voting. That will be our first time we set up 26 of California as a polling place. So we're meeting on that. The 18th is 1 p.m. We have a preliminary budget hearing that we meet with the city at 4 o'clock on the 21st. And we're going to be, and we have our weekly, twice a week meetings with Dominion. So this agency is really busy right into here. I have nothing to report. I will give a report to you in writing tomorrow. That's what I have.
Mr. Holliday, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. From September 22nd through the 25th in Springfield, Illinois, I attended along with our General Counsel Adam Lasker and our Communication Director Jim Allen the annual conference of the Illinois Association of County Clerks and Recorders and the Association of Election Commissioners of Illinois. Many subjects were talked about, in particular election legislation, cybersecurity, elections and security and media relations. Our General Counsel spoke on electoral boards and their duties, and our Communication Director spoke on the 100th birthday of the 19th Amendment. They both presented very well. It was a very informative section. The registration staff are working on the return canvas mailing so that the second notice can be mailed out. We are still having our weekly meetings with ES&S on the e-poll book. Dominion and ES&S are working together with the activation of voter cards through the e-poll book with our new voting system. We are having our twice-a-week meeting with Dominion with the implementation of our new voting equipment. The individual sessions for the different departments are ongoing. Alex, the project manager, is here to give more details. The staff at the warehouse are preparing to accept the new equipment once it's delivered. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Alex, do you have anything else to add to what Mr. Holliday said? Everything is moving along?
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. I think very little to add. As Charles said, we've been working the last couple of months.
One step up to the mic.
Thank you. Good morning. For my records, Alex Soto Vasquez, Project Manager for Dominion Voting Systems. As Charles mentioned, we've been working already almost 2 months with the various teams, and we've been making big advances to have the system ready and in place for the election, for the March election. Planning deliveries to begin late October, beginning of November. We're waiting, actually certification started last week, and that's moving well. We've been pushing very hard the state so we can get the certification achieved within the month of October. That will trigger deliveries and full speed ahead with acceptance testing and leaning towards a mock election possibly on December.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Mr. Allen?
Morning. Since we last spoke, given a couple of presentations, Mr. Holliday referenced one. We also presented with the League of Women Voters up at Sulzer Library last week on election security. Of note, their biggest interest was in, because a lot of them were also election judges, was in the new equipment and what security features that will offer, as well as how it will function. So they're very excited to learn more about that if and when we're able to take delivery and introduce that to the public. This coming week, I've been invited by MICVA Challenge to participate in a forum at Benito Juarez High School. So it's where the students present the most important concept that they think needs to be addressed in their community. And it's not really judging them, but offering positive feedback. But we're going to use this opportunity to make more inroads with voting at 17 for next year, the primary election. And also we've got a meeting coming up, as Mr. Gough is aware of. Reform for Illinois has asked us to give the opening remarks with data on participation rates for a session that they're going to host with a variety of speakers, looking at ideas that they want to pursue in terms of specifically like a permanent roster that would allow people to sign up once to receive vote-by-mail ballots at every election after that. And I think some national figures are interested in attending that in the election industry.
Yeah, people from Democracy Live who will be there, other associations.
We're just there in a supportive role to provide data on Chicago's registration rates and participation rates. And I'll provide you with more details in a separate report.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, you mentioned voting by the 17-year-old voting if they reach 18 by election day. And you mentioned the Juarez, so I just want to dive into that a little more.
Okay.
Do we have a plan in terms of communicating that to schools in Chicago for the 17-year-olds that will be 18? Do you have some kind of outreach plan for that?
Yes, we have a relationship with Chicago Public Schools and specifically their civics program, so that they have leaders in civics education at every high school in the city of Chicago. And then we in turn have worked with principals and social studies teachers and what have you to get out a brochure on how to register to vote and how to have students vote, and what the rules are as far as voter ID, or what kind of ID they will need to register, how they can do it online if they set up a computer in their gymnasium. So I'd be more than happy to share that brochure with you.
That'd be fine. Two comments. One, I would not limit our outreach to public schools solely. We have a lot of students that are in private schools who still should be able to avail themselves of this franchise. One. Two, I encourage you to develop some sort of social media outreach. Brochures are great, and I think that'd be wonderful to circulate in some sort of mechanism that can be circulated through Instagram or through young people are not on Facebook, so we don't have to worry about that. But for their parents, they may be on Facebook. So having two different, if you have a young person, like for example, my son is 17, will be 18 before election day, so both my sons will be voting in this election. If I have anything to say about it, and I do. So both of them will be voting this election, but my oldest too. But making sure that we have tracks on social media, private school outreach as well. And I would also, in addition to private schools, try to reach out to any other community-based organizations. So trying to create some kind of list around those to make sure that's communicated fully that young people have the ability to vote in this election.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll proceed now with old business. Infrastructure projects and changes in election administration as well as voting equipment. I think we've addressed that. Electronic poll books.
Our meetings are ongoing, and we have our weekly meeting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Legislation, Mr. Lasker?
The omnibus bill is up for consideration towards the end of this month, but we've been informed that there's nothing that's going to be added to it unless there's any emergency stuff. We don't have any emergency stuff. So we're out of session. That's about it for now.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to new business, and the first item is the proposed amendment of the professional services agreement between Board of Election Commissioners and SKU Corporation. Mr. Lasker?
So SKU Corporation is the small company that has developed and maintains our voter registration database and works with other computer systems for the board. They're currently under an ongoing support and maintenance agreement that you approved again this past summer. We want two small amendments to that to add some authority for SKU to perform modifications, enhancements, and support on our existing computer systems for compatibility with the new Dominion election equipment that we're in the process of procuring. So obviously we'll need to update our current systems to maintain compatibility. And then secondly, the State Board of Elections is doing a Phase 4 modification to its IVRS statewide voter registration system. And so again, we just need to update our systems to continue working smoothly with the state. This maintenance contract is under a monthly, flat rate monthly fee, and all we're simply doing is adding these two provisions to the contract.
The fee does not change?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
No questions, but I do have a comment. I mean, I plan to vote for this, amendment, but I just want to echo, my concern. As you mentioned, this is a small company, and I'm always concerned about redundancy. So, we should give significant thought to, should something happen to this company, for whatever reason, be it going out of business, or something happening to, or let's say it's John winning the lottery and going on to Tahiti, whatever it may be. Speaking of the positive, we need to think about redundancy. This is a big kind of support, and they do a lot for us. And considering that we're agency this size, we just need to be thoughtful about that.
Agreed, and a part of the contingency coup planning that we're working on is for all of our vendors to create backups in case of winning the lottery, not emergencies, but in case of winning the lottery.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there an agreement, is there a motion to approve the amendment number 1 to the agreement between SKU and the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago, amending the agreement to include support, maintenance, and normal enhancements, including updates to ensure compatibility with the State Board of Elections IVRS system, Phase 4 modification, modifications to create the new IVRS 4 registration fields and other changes, and secondly, in relation to the implementation and future use of new voting equipment and software procured by the board in 2019 for the 2020 election cycle and beyond.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and the agreement is approved. Second is an attorney contractor agreement between the Board of Election Commissioners and Barbara Goodman. Mr. Lasker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Barbara Goodman, as you are all well aware, has been an attorney assisting this board for many election cycles, mostly with the Electoral Board, but also election administration matters. For this upcoming primary in March of 2020, we are going to be rolling out new election equipment, which is quite the project to throw on top of just standard preparation for a presidential primary. We will have our Electoral Board hearings starting in early December, in the leading up months to the election. So I would request a contract with Barb, as we have done in the past, for her to assist not only as a hearing officer for the Electoral Board, but in case I need some extra help as well with all of this extra stuff going on for my first presidential cycle that I'll do with the board, it didn't feel quite like enough, so we're also, my wife and I are bringing another voter into the world this February.
Hey.
And there's a chance that I could use Barb for some extra backup during that time as well.
Is there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the attorney contractor agreement between the Board of Election Commissioners and Barbara Goodman for the purpose of providing legal services to the board in a variety of areas, including preparing draft opinions, serving as a hearing officer, and representing the board and its commissioners or employees in federal and state court if appointed and assigned to do so in the amount of $210 per hour. And the term of this agreement shall be from October 8th, 2019 through December 31st, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the adoption of guidelines for local option referenda for the November 3rd, 2020 general election.
Thank you. So the local option guidelines are to assist those who are working under the Liquor Control Act of 1934 to try to change a part of the city either from restricted alcohol sales to available sales or the other way around. Nothing much has changed other than the dates and deadlines for this document. We are expressly encouraging people who are working on these petitions to seek legal advice and to put information about the Chicago Bar Association lawyer referral service. And we've started receiving a lot of phone calls for this already, so I would just like the public to be reminded that local option referendum under the Electoral Control Act are only allowed to go on the ballot for a general election or a consolidated election, not for a primary. So although we've got the guidelines ready, it's only for November.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve and adopt the guidelines for the local option referenda for the November 3rd, 2020 general election?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and the guidelines are approved and adopted. And lastly is the adoption of the 2020 guidelines for advisory referenda. Mr. Lasker.
With these guidelines and the ones we just approved for local option, we'll be sending them down, by the way, to our language teams for translation, and they'll all be available in multiple languages on the internet very soon. These are the advisory referendum guidelines. Advisory referendum may appear on the March primary ballot. The only substantial changes to these guidelines is that there has been some recent case law court decisions, electoral board decisions involving the number of referenda questions that may appear on a single petition, that being a limit of 1. And so we have slightly modified the advisory referenda guidelines to suggest that only one question be put on each petition.
I think that's very good. Are there any further questions? If not, is there a motion to adopt the 2020 guidelines for advisory referenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the legal report. Mr. Lasker, do we have a legal report?
I've got a few things I'd like to make sure you're aware of. First of all, the Dominion contract for the new election equipment, we are essentially ready to go, waiting on the city to make a decision on the 3 funding options that Dominion provided to us. So the city is diligently looking at the various options for finding revenue and can make a decision on that, and then we'll be ready to proceed. As you heard, I did recently attend the joint sessions of the Illinois Association of Election Commission Officials and also the county clerks. It was really great to be there with all those election administrators. There are 40 newly elected brand new county clerks in the state of Illinois right now who were elected this past November. They're coming up on their first presidential election cycle here. So I was pleased to be able to give them some heads up on how the Electoral Board process works. We didn't actually talk about the substance of what the objections might have in them, but actually the administration and all the deadlines to meet the statutory requirements. We also heard, I found interesting hearing from the state archivist's office on document retention. And when they come out of their unlit, windowless, humidity-controlled rooms, They're actually quite interesting people and sound extremely helpful. And I think that we're going to be reaching out to them just for some guidance, if nothing else. We are going to be working on digitizing our microfilm archives. We might be too big of a project for them to handle, but they certainly encouraged us to work with them on finding places that could be good for it. Also, they will store all of our microfilm when we're done with the digitization project in their receptacles. So that would be great. They also can advise us on the archival of social media documents that are created because we have a Facebook page and so forth. So that was something I found interesting too. They really encouraged us to reach out for follow-up support, and I plan to do that. Also, I'd like you to know that we have just last week executed an extension to our settlement agreement with the Department of Justice regarding ADA accessibility of our polling places. Although we did not meet the original goal and the original settlement agreement, I do believe the DOJ is quite pleased with the progress that we have made. We have an administrative system in place for election day that has all of our election judges participating in the process. We have the city through the 2FM department and the schools and the parks all out there right now completing surveys of all their locations that will be completed by Thanksgiving of this year. And so we are in very good shape with the new goal to be fully accessible by the November 2022 election. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. And that's my report.
Thank you. We do not have a financial report today. I have now received no request for public comment. Mr. Lasker, is there a need for executive session today?
Not today, thank you.
Okay, if not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting on October 22nd, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you.